Hi everyone, Teddy Baldassarre here from TeddyBaldassarre.com. Today we're looking at a new release from Oris with the Oris Diver 65 Carl Brashear edition with the new caliber 401 inside. A badass watch from a really badass man, but we'll talk a little bit about that more in a moment. So in this video, we're gonna take a closer look at this watch, and then at the end, share some final thoughts. Who's this watch for? Who is it not for? And in addition, as we go through this video, link in the description for where to purchase this watch at TeddyBaldassarre.com, full authorized dealer of Oris watches, with also more information on that product page. But guys, let's take a closer look at this watch. Now, first looking at a rundown of the specs, we have a case size of 40 millimeters, thickness of 12.8 millimeters, lug to lug of 48 millimeters, lug width 20 millimeters, water resistance of 100 meters, movement is an automatic Oris caliber 401, crystal is sapphire, case material is bronze consistently across, apart from the case back, which is going to be in stainless steel, and price $4,200. But if you use promo code Brashear at checkout, you can get any 2 free straps on our store for free. Just add the straps to your cart with the watch and you'll be good to go. You get the full 10-year warranty that comes with this movement when you purchase from TeddyBaldassarre.com. And finally, 9 out of every $10 that we generate from our store goes right back into the content that we're creating. Now, brand ambassadors or brands that attach or have affiliation with individuals, celebrities, it's nothing new for the world of watches, but if there's one brand that I definitely get behind in terms of the people that they represent and partner with, it's Oris. As another example, previously I did a video where I reviewed the Roberto Clemente edition from Oris, one of my favorite releases of all of 2020, and I have a video on it. I can link to it down below. One of my favorite reviews as a baseball fan, and really covering a amazing man with Roberto Clemente. And we're getting more of the same here, looking at this Carl Brashear Oris. This is the 3rd installment that they've created in partnership with the Carl Brashear Foundation. And before getting into this watch, because there's a lot of interesting things to talk about with this timepiece, the bronze case, its design, as well as the caliber 401 within, I do think it's important just to take a moment to talk about who this watch is made to honor, as I think it will give even further appreciation for what this watch is all about. So Carl Brashear was born in Kentucky in 1931, 6 of 8 children, and at a young age he had a desire to enlist in the U.S. Navy with the hope of becoming a diver by entering the Navy Diving and Salvage School. However, rising in a segregated America at the time, it made his personal pursuits a challenge to say the least. Yet he persevered and graduated from the diving and salvage school, becoming the first African-American U.S. Navy diver. After some years diving in the Navy, Brashear's life changed forever following a tragic accident during a mission in 1966, when a towing rope came undone, causing a metal pipe to come flying at him at a high rate of speed on board, making contact with his lower leg, causing immense damage to his lower extremity. Given their distance offshore, they were not able to provide proper medical attention in a timely manner, leading to his leg being amputated. At the time of the injury, there was little to no possibility amongst his peers that Brashear would ever reclaim status as being an active diver in the Navy. Yet Brashear, being a man of overcoming obstacles all the way in his life to that point, and being a fan of the sport of boxing, understood the power of will and made it a mission to fight back from his injury. In years to come, he trained with his prosthetic leg in order to meet the strenuous physical demands of being a diver in the U.S. Navy, including running with his prosthetic leg and bearing the weight of the heavy dive suit of the time period. This was all in an era where the technology and standards for artificial limbs aren't really what they are today, as during his runs, the prosthetic leg would dig into his deep scar tissue, causing heavy bleeding and immense pain. But through his training, Brashear managed to come back and become a certified diver again in 1968, the first amputee to receive this honor, and in 1970, receiving the high honor of becoming a master diver, the first African American to receive this status in the U.S. Navy's history. Brashear retired from active diving in the Navy in 1979, yet was a regular face for showing the newcomers the ropes and being a fixture of resilience throughout his life until his passing in 2006. Today, the Carl Brashear Foundation, founded by 2 of his sons, carries on his legacy, a legacy best summed up by a quote from the man himself: "It's not a sin to get knocked down, it's a sin to stay down." But now on a much lighter note, let's take a look at the watch that honors the man himself. So this watch that we have here comes in a 40mm case and is very wearable when you factor in all its dimensions. 12.8mm when you are looking at the thickness, and a lot of that is going to be coming from the dome sapphire crystal. The lug-to-lug distance of 48mm is going to allow this one to wear very true to that 40mm case option. And speaking of, when looking at the strap that's occupying here, honestly making it wear even smaller on the wrist is this Marine Nationale strap, which very much matches the undertones of what this piece is going about. When you size it up properly, it is very snug on the wrist, very comfortable, and also has matching hardware to match the bronze case. Now, the case material here is bronze, as you probably have already noticed. It is going to lead to some patina over time, but is a very different case material and something that's been rolled out quite a bit. And Oris is certainly a brand that definitely utilizes the material better than most. One predominant aspect of the watch that is not featuring bronze is going to be the case back, which will avoid the potential irritation of skin. From a finishing standpoint, across the lugs have more of a brush style finish, and then along the sides of the case going to feature polishing. At the 3 o'clock, we do have a screw down crown, which is going to operate in typical fashion, hand winding at the first position while stopping the second hand at the farthest out point. Speaking of the screw down crown, here is an appropriate time to talk about the water resistance on this timepiece. The Oris Diver 65 family is a 100 meters of water resistant family of watches. And I could see some people in the comments mentioning the fact that, hey, this watch is made to reflect and represent a diver. Shouldn't the thing have more than 100 meters of water resistance, which could be a fair point, but 100 meters certainly sufficient to be a dive watch by ISO 6425 standards, so certainly appropriate for 99% of the people out there, but I know it is going to be a comment perhaps brought up. The bezel, also coming in bronze, does have a coin-style edge, which is easy to grip. It is 120 click unidirectional in its rotation, featuring a rather consistent blasted finish with raised numerals with the triangular tip at the 12, also featuring lume. Casting across the dial is a heavily domed sapphire crystal, providing view of the dial elements underneath, with a small bit of distortion when looking at the markers at the farthest out point of the dial outskirts. Along the outside, a minute track, stepping inward, circular and rectangular applied hour markers, simple lume-filled stick hands at the center, and very small dial text. Now, the change here in this watch compared to some other Diver 65 is going to be the location of that sub-seconds here at the 6 o'clock. We're going to see some writing along the outside of it, water resistance, and the writing of 10 bar 100 meters above, and then 5 days alluding to the caliber 401 within and its power reserve with the Swiss made underneath. On that subdial, there'll be small indicators at the 12, 15, 30, and 45, with a small sub-seconds hand that will rotate around, indicating the 60-second time. The dial is of a very deep blue, almost transitioning to black under certain lighting conditions, and with the bronze case is a very nice pairing, especially with those indices as well that almost match the style of that bronze case. The lume on this piece is quite good, large surface areas for those numerals as well as those thick hands at the center, which will help with assistance in orientation in darker environments. Very similar to what we saw with the recently released Oris Aquis Caliber 400. One of the main talking points is, of course, going to be the movement, but unlike that watch, there is no actual open case back featuring the movement, but instead a stainless steel closed case back, providing a beautiful engraved case back of Carl Brashear wearing his diving suit with the marking of the limited edition production number. Now, despite being hidden from view, this Caliber 401 is essentially a slightly reworked Caliber 400 with the sub-seconds that you're going to be seeing on the front of the dial. It features a fully exposed balance, large jewels, which will aid in the elongating of the service interval, a hollowed out sine rotor that deviates from the more traditional ball bearing system, and to top it off, 2 large main spring barrels that will help with this watch's 120-hour power reserve or 5-day power reserve. The movement also gets some nice upgrades in the defense against magnetism with its silicone escapement wheel, and the movement was also tested to still run with less than 10 seconds of deviation even after being exposed to 2,250 Gauss and under normal conditions, or states that these movements to clock in with accuracy of -3 to +5 seconds a day, which when we were testing out actually found was more conservative compared to the actuals. However, like any new movement, there's always questions of reliability, as you can look at several examples in the past few years of watches that were releasing with new movements, and maybe some issues kind of were surfacing as things were kind of rolling out into the market. But with this watch's 10-year warranty and claimed 10-year service interval from Oris, should offer a lot of peace of mind as a consumer. Now to unpack this timepiece, things to consider: who is this for, who is it not for? Now, first off, I think Oris did a fantastic job in partnering up with Carl Brashear Foundation and really developing a piece that I think embodies very much of what the man was about, diving influence, a watch that also pulls from designs from the era of the 1960s, a time where Brashear was really in his prime as a diver. I think they knocked it out of the park in terms of a design perspective. The Caliber 400, in terms of what Oris is going for, I think is a huge accomplishment for the brand. And I just personally love the look of this timepiece where it's falling. But I will say the one challenge I think Oris is going to continue to have, and I think just the elephant in the room, is the price here. We're looking at north of $4,000 for an Oris. And not to say that it's not worth the price, but you do have to have a conversation of where is Oris going to fall? And I think they're still kind of getting their footing in terms of how they position their Caliber 400 movements. This is a fully in-house movement. They definitely spent quite a bit of R&D, and I think this watch, in terms of the marketplace, is a well-finished watch. If you look at the competition, you can look at a brand like Tudor, and I think this, from a finishing perspective, is right on par with that. But there is power in brand, and there is power in preconceived ideas of how you perceive a brand like Oris. For a long time, they've been producing watches with Sellita-based calibers within them and providing great value when doing so, and this is certainly a step up. So that's going to be a big point of consideration for, I think, many people looking in the direction of this as Oris continues to position their Caliber 400s and putting them in more watches. But on the flip side, a very attractive looking timepiece and honoring a badass man in Carl Brashear. All right, guys, well, thank you again so much for watching. If you did enjoy this video, you find these helpful, thumbs up, subscribe, hit the bell icon, really would appreciate it. If you're also in the market for this watch, link in the description to the product page, where to purchase at teddybaldassarre.com. Full authorized dealer of all the brands that we carry, quick and fast fulfillment, full factory warranty for all the brands that we carry. So if something goes wrong, you don't have to pay the bill. And if we're talking about some of these more expensive watches, it can get a little bit pricey. Also, we offer price match. So if one of our watches are cheaper at another authorized dealer, you fill out the form on the product page and then we'll call you. And finally, 9 out of every $10 that we generate from our store goes right back into the content that we're creating, helping to foster up a new generation of watch enthusiasts. But guys, thank you again so much for watching. Be well, and I'll see you all very soon.